listen. So it is in the context of this that we write speeches as a presentation of a truth. I'm going to assume that our speeches are presenting the truth. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to do so, but I'm going to pretend that we necessarily them at least. When we say things, we try to present facts. But the idea here is that we have to present facts that are palatable, that are convincing. So this is our lesson plan. We'll give a very simple definition of speech, look at the different kinds of speech, and focus on those that we may be called upon to write in the university system. And then we'll take a look at speech in classical rhetoric, the background. For them, speaking was a very, very important skill. So we'll borrow a few tips from them. And then we'll just go to the nitty-gritty of steps in speech writing. I'll run through that very quickly today. Tomorrow we'll have a hands-on thing. We'll have opportunities to generate ideas, write, jot down points in groups, actually get to write a speech together. And so that the steps and the tasks will go together. And then I'll give you a few sample texts that you would, good speeches, great orations, just to keep and look at, and maybe some of them read together, and hope that from this point, when we are called on to write speeches or citations, it won't be a bore. It will be more like, all right, have an opportunity to show off some stuff. A speech is an oral presentation or a formal talk given to an audience. So now we are not talking about the path to speak, but speech as a kind of text. There are some common types of talk. For those of us from a Christian background, when you go for a Christian conference, you have talk 1 or 2. So you have a talk, which is a little more informal than a speech. A speech could be something like opening remarks, a funeral oration. I hope you will be called upon to write that in the near future. And then you have valedictory speeches. And then you have addresses. Address of welcome, keynote address, a citation of somebody that is being presented with an award, other public orations, addresses and communication. So I know that we often write addresses, so we'll take a look at that. Then you have lectures, that's what we do from our lecture notes. But you also have public lectures, which does not assume that the audience has too much insight into the topic, so it's more formal, you appeal more to authority. And then we have sermons, which could be in church, in mosque, or anything, but it's also very structured. In fact, people go to school to learn how to preach sermons. A Muslim sermon, for example, is structured to give a message, show a citation from the Quran, then continue and so on. And in the presentation, there must be space for the arawasi, You don't just go and deliver everything. You say one main point and then wait for the arawasi to sorry, I'm assuming that we are all Yoruba. But I think Arowas is like the interpreter. But it's actually not just interpreting. It is actually expounding. More like an expositor, So all these things are well structured, but we'll focus on speeches and addresses. Because speech is, we are a society of textual people. Our focus is on writing. But in classical times, speech was the more important thing. So they developed it into an art. because I have only 1 hour now, I would hope that when we look at this, we will get a few of the other points. But basically, rhetoric is the theory and practice of eloquence, the art of speaking persuasively. Okay? So there's no assumption that because I'm speaking the truth, you must accept it. The idea is, yeah, these are the facts, and I'm going to put them so nicely, you will feel, oh yes, if it sounds so good, it must be true. That's the idea behind eloquence. But the rules they use then, even though we don't pretend to follow them, but some of the major issues, researching your topic, putting it in a bland form, then adding the maggi and the spices, and then tasting to see, well, does it taste too good, and then adding a little more. The same style that they used then is what we use now, without putting on the idiom and the oratorio, and the kind of language that they used. Now, rhetoric defines the rules that should govern all prose composition. All prose composition, whether it is meant for delivery or it's meant to be given to people to read. So when I say speech here, actually, it doesn't apply only to something that was delivered orally. Okay? Book composition, a text, a proposal. Technically, it's a speech that is designed to convince. I think the museum is calling it again. Okay. So, rhetoric treats all matters relating to beauty or forcefulness or style. Now, there are different kinds. You have forensic oratory. The idea is to produce evidence, to convince that the position you have taken is the right one. Examples will include lawyers strutting their stuff in a courtroom. But also in the last few weeks, 3-4 weeks, during the debates leading up to the elections, we also had this kind of forensic oratory. So that somebody was playing on the word God and Father. That, well, some people have godfathers, but I have God as my father, as a display of oratory. You could have said, well, I don't have a godfather, but I believe God. But it won't sound so nice, okay? So that's an example of forensic oratory. Then you have deliberative oratory. Okay? Deliberative oratory, like people, houses of assembly. Before I did this talk, I really didn't like listening to them. They sounded very boring. Until I noticed that they were obeying certain rules. It was kind of like saying, Mr. Speaker, and in a particular tone of voice, as if they are acting a part. But actually, that's what they're doing. Okay? They are not just giving information. They are trying to convince not just Mr. Speaker or Mr. Senate President, but everybody else there as to the rightness of the cause they want to support. But more interesting for us is epideitic oratory. The idea is there is a subject and you want to praise it or praise him or her. So a citation is epideitic oratory, funeral oratory. Somebody who was a really, really nasty fellow, when you go to his burial, you don't say, well, I don't know how to tell that this man was bad. Well, over my day, over me that I wrote, even though inside me I say, but what is required of that kind of speech is for you to praise the fellow. So testimonial dinners, when we are sending all these particular, after I have become the registrar of university in my town. When we send him off, we have to say a lot of nice things about him, how well he's managing the transport committee and so on. So we have this kind, but we are more interested in the third kind. Now, we have said, what I said earlier, that even though when we write speeches, we are not actually thinking of a classical model, but these forms of discourse might show up in different combinations in our text, in our speech. We have argumentation. The purpose of that kind of composition is to convince a hearer or reader by establishing the truth or falsity of a proposition. So there is an idea, and we want to show that this is my position, and I believe it is right because of this, that. And then you have description. Of course, you may want to convince me that FUTA is the best university of technology in Nigeria. You will have to describe. So you can't just do it by arguing. My supervisor calls that canvassing the position. You state the position, but you don't show evidence. So description might come in picturing the setting. Select details that you want people to focus on, and so on. Then you have exposition, to explain the nature of an object. And then you have narration. I'm sure we are familiar with this from narrative essay, argumentative essay, and so on, and so on. Now, in any of these kinds of discourse, we have to assume a persona. We have to imagine who we think we are. I no longer mark GCE English now, but one of my favorite topics that I marked was for 15, 16, 17-year-olds to imagine that they had a sister who had a quarrel with her husband and was on the verge of moving out. And they had to write to the sister to persuade, she remembered, to persuade her to stay. I found it very funny that what is the experience of these kids in life to be able to write such a letter? What they had to do was to assume either they were an older brother or a younger brother. Whether you are an older brother who happens to be a pastor, or an older brother whose wife has also walked out and whose children are suffering, you have to imagine who you are. When we write speeches also, we have to don a persona. We have to put on a particular mask. So if you are writing for the Vice Chancellor on issues relating to some particular allowances, that for some reason the Vice Chancellor isn't going to pay, and which you want to put in your pocket. You cannot put it in the Vice Chancellor's mouth and say, you see, these allowances are really important and we will try to pay it, because that's not the VC. So I don't know, there will be some stylistic schizophrenia, you have a split personality. There's your personal person, or what my son calls my own personal self. Put that in the background and write as if you were the VC. So the kinds of speeches that we may have to write include the ones I will mention under addresses and speeches. Now, when you need to write, when I say your speech, but that means the speech you write. It doesn't have to be the speech you will present. Just to make it sound like I said 7 steps. I'm sure there could be 20 steps or 3 steps, but 7 steps make it sound as if it's important and has a spiritual preliminary considerations, that's the thing that comes to you when you get a letter or a call asking you to write a speech. And then you do some research, you structure the speech, you do a first draft, which I can tell you confidently will be very bad. But that's the way it's meant to be. And then you have a second draft, and then peer review, editing, and rehearsal. We will have time tomorrow to look at all of this, and I think I'm going to really enjoy the step 1. Determine the speaker. Who are you writing for? And what is his or her role? I want us to distinguish between who the speaker is and what his or her role is. Let's take registrar. The registrar, that's what she is. But if she's giving a speech at annual park conference, her role is different. If she's coming to speak to students, she could be speaking as a registrar. But she's speaking at the commissioning of the alumni secretariat, and she's invited as the registrar. She's not only the registrar, she's also an alumni because she finished from here. Okay? So you have to look at what is the role, what is his position, what part is he trying to play. That will determine the kind of things he or she will be allowed to say. If the Vice Chancellor were going to address FUTA-Akure partnership on the issue of increasing school fees, he could just come and be dispassionate about it and give them data. You know, we spend 20,000 naira to keep one student in the hostel. Just give them stories. You know, he doesn't want to get involved. Or he could decide to, I don't know whether I can let him the footer now, but he could decide, you see, I'm a parent just like you. We know what is going on with. If we treat those children like animals, they will behave like animals. You see, that hostel right now is more fit for animals than for children. So we have to put some more money and make that place good for them. I know what I want for my children. Now, he's not just giving you facts and figures. He's playing on their emotions as a father, you know, just like that. Or so I think we get the idea of there's the speaker and there's an act, there's a part he is acting. Then find out about the audience and its various memberships. You know, well, who would they be addressing? Are there particular segments that you will need to appeal to differently? I tell you, if students were to be in the meeting of FUTA-Akure partnership, and you are telling them about the hostels being fit for animals, they will say, we don't mind. Okay? And that will just spoil the speech. So you will know how to segment the different parts of the audience and appeal to them. You will, determine what their interest is. Not so much what would they like to hear, but how would you like them to understand the point that you are making? And then determine the purpose of the speech. What is the speech intended to do? Is it just to give people information and let them go and make up their own minds? Or is it to give them information and lead them to make up their mind in a particular direction? Is it to dissuade them from taking a course of action? But don't just say, well, like what we said in the beginning, if the truth were self-evident, eloquence would be unnecessary. So there's no hard point in the hard labor of writing unless you expect to do something, unless there's a purpose why you are doing it. Research your speech. Research your speech. If you are given a writing task, and it's important enough, I'm going to assume that you do not have all the facts that you need to put in the speech or in the writing task. And it will be extremely arrogant for you to feel small. Okay? So it's better to start from the standpoint that I really don't know enough about this. Let me find out. So source for facts. Useful sources include written sources, non-print sources, and to go to what the gentleman said the other time, that that's oral tradition. You can also have information from freely circulating material, that is not written down anywhere, but it's in the public library, in the public memory. I know that sometimes when we are told to write a speech, we are giving some help. You might be given materials. Anytime I'm told to write a citation, I usually have a CV. Okay? And then it's my business to look for supplementary material. So you might be given materials like reports, university calendar, information, where you can get information. The idea is use it. Even though I put here source for facts, I've also found it useful to source for language. Okay, it's not just the truth of what you want to say to them, but how it will sound nice. Now, the quotation I put at the beginning about the truth not being self-evident, I didn't know it until yesterday. It was at the point of preparing the PowerPoint for this presentation that I had. There will be something about speech in Enkata. And I just looked and I found it. So it is not only facts that you source for. You can source for language. Use the thesaurus, look at the dictionary of quotations, something that would present your point powerfully. In researching for my citation on Chief Shoneko, I wanted a very nice way to say, well, if he chose to accept leadership of the interim government, he was at liberty to do so. I mean, we don't have to agree with him, but it was his right to decide, to do so. And so I looked at my dictionary of quotations, which is the back matter of the Chambers 20th Century Dictionary. I don't remember the thing now, but the general idea that there is something that is not subject to majority opinion, and that is somebody's own personal position. I think it was tickled silly, said, yeah, that's the first time somebody represented my decision properly, and I'm very grateful. But it's not my idea, I found it somewhere else. Okay, so source for facts, certainly, but also you might also source for the right language. Now, as you are consulting all these useful sources, take notes. And let me just go back to oral sources. It might mean speaking to somebody. I have to write on this. Do you have any ideas? It could be a phrase, it could be anything. What I'm saying is when you're writing a speech, you don't have to do all on your own. So take notes. If somebody gives you an interesting turn of phrase, write it down. It may come in useful somewhere. Then organize the useful ideas into an outline or a spiral.